Welcome back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is a holistic nutritionist, empowerment coach, speaker, and F Your To-Do List coach. Today's guest is Carmen Ohling. Carmen, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Carmen, we're going to just jump right into things with a little bit of a warm-up. The first question that I have for you is, how do you start your day? Do you have some sort of specific morning routine that you like to stick to on most mornings?
Great question. I do have a morning routine, but I actually call it a morning ritual.
Okay.
So the difference between a routine and a ritual is a routine can very easily become just another checklist item.
Right.
Okay, I did that, I did this. A ritual helps you evoke feeling.
Okay.
And so my ritual every morning is pretty much the same, even on the weekend. So I get up, I have warm lemon water. You know, our body's dehydrated.
Yep.
Because basically, even though we're sleeping, we've been fasting all night.
For sure.
So getting in that water, I always do reading, journaling, and a quick meditation. Maybe it's 1 minute, maybe it's 20 minutes, depending on how much time I have for the day. The journaling looks a little bit different each and every day. I might be talking about my intention for the day or how I want to feel. It could be free writing or just like random thoughts. But by slowing down each morning, I'm in control of my day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, now I want to touch on kind of the writing and the journaling, because that's something, just paying attention a little bit to your Instagram stories, you definitely put that out there. And I knew that about you coming in to this conversation for the podcast. So, and writing is a huge part of my life. It's a great way for me to express kind of some of those inner feelings and emotions. So is that kind of what the writing and the journaling is for you, to get those inner thoughts and feelings and emotions down on paper so you can kind of release that? Or maybe is it something else for you?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. For me, just like the water, like starting my day with that was something healthy,
right,
so to speak. The journaling starts my day with being self-aware.
Okay,
because
perfect.
Oftentimes, and in my past, and what I work with many of my clients with is like we start our day rushed. We're not slowing down. We immediately jump on the treadmill of life and we're not checking in with ourselves, and we don't have self-awareness. So it kickstart my day with self-awareness. It will also could bring something up maybe that I'm ignoring or a feeling that I'm having. Maybe it's just a reminder for myself or an affirmation I want to hold for the day. So it's a variety of things. And let me tell you, when I started journaling, because I get this question all the time, like I would sit there like, what am I going to write on this freaking piece of paper? I have no idea. And so the best way to start, and what I do when I don't have anything to free write, is just have some questions, some prompts that I use to kind of get my brain working.
Now, for the listeners out there that aren't necessarily kind of in the health wellness world like you and I are, what do you mean when you talk about or mention being self-aware or self-awareness?
Oh, I love that question. I've never been asked that before. Basically, it's understanding what's going on in your mind and your body throughout the day. So, for example, oftentimes we could have an emotion or a feeling throughout the day, and if we're not checking in with ourselves, we're not realizing like where that's coming from, right?
Yep.
And so everything in life is happening for us, not to us, and if we choose to see things that way, then we can understand that every emotion we're feeling is an emotion that we're selecting. We're placing meaning onto something, and if you can step back from that, you can actually have more control of your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, your overall mood for the day, because really it comes back to focusing on feeling good every single day.
Right.
Self-awareness around how your body feels. So it's a fitness podcast. So are you pushing really hard and doing like HIIT workouts every single day and weight training really hard? Your body feels like dog shit? Like you need to know that because you need to take rest. Or like what types of foods should you be eating? So there's a lot with self-awareness, but it's just actually getting to know you, your thoughts, your feelings, what your body needs. There's this idea of bio-individuality. And so that means like everybody's different. So when I work with people, like there's a main like outline that I use, but everybody's a little bit different based on their body and their thoughts, their feelings, what they're up to during the day.
Perfect. All right. So the second question, Carmen, that I have for you, and if there's more than one, please feel free to share, but do you have a favorite book or book that you like to gift often?
Yeah, so I would think my favorite book is A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Okay.
That is the one that I gift the most often. Let's see, what I read last month. 2 books I read last month is Own Your Everyday by Jordan Lee Dooley. And a really quick, awesome read, if you've never read it, is The Perfect Day Formula by Craig Ballantyne. So those are some really good recommendations for your audience.
Now, the first one that you mentioned, A Return to Love, if you don't mind sharing kind of what is the gist or the overall view of that book?
Sure. So you have to be in the right space for this book. So this book is all about coming back to the idea that everything is on the basis of love. Like if we come back and we operate and we serve in an everyday, so it's a spiritual book from the place of love, like that's how we're going to be able to experience joy in everyday life. That's how we're able to build quality relationships. That's how we're able to find success, and it really comes back to love. That's why it's called A Return to Love.
For sure.
Yeah, and you might have seen Marianne. She was on the Democratic debate, so she's actually running for president in the next election.
And that's the author of the book?
That's the author of
sweet.
the book.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Now, do you have a favorite quote or mantra that has been impactful in your life?
This is a great question, because I think as seasons change in my life and growth, like things change. Things that come to mind are, if not now, when. Like that's so important. Like start before you're ready. Maya Angelou, she says, people won't remember you for what you did or what you said. They'll remember for how you make them feel.
Absolutely.
And so I get chills saying that out loud, like
right.
But and again, kind of that idea of it coming back to love, and we're all human, and we're all one. And if we remember that we're more alike than different, like we can really create an amazing, amazing thing in our life.
For sure. Now, I want to quickly, before I go back to, or before I ask the last question as a part of the warm-up, I want to talk on what you mentioned again, kind of as part of your morning ritual in regards to like affirmation or affirmations. What is kind of like what's the impetus for that affirmation part of your morning ritual? Is it kind of like I am statements, or is it writing out maybe a word or a sentence or phrase that you're focusing on that day or that week or that month? What does that affirmation kind of look like for you, that process, and why is that so valuable and important for somebody like me or one of the listeners out there?
So an affirmation is a statement, a feeling, or a word that you can use throughout your day. So for example, today I'm connecting with you for the first time. And so I want to make sure that I'm feeling energetic, alive, that sort of thing. That's important to me. And so the affirmation that I use this morning is just I'm a magnet for abundance in my life. I'm brilliantly powerful, just building myself up, because, at times even me, like you can get in your head about stuff with comparison and judgment, but other things might be something that you're working on. For example, like you mentioned, you said I'm the Fuck Your To-Do List coach, so that just boils down to basically I help mainly women, like strong business leaders, business owners, ambitious women, like take their to-do list and really take back their day. And so I'm working with someone right now who just feels stressed and overwhelmed all the time. They feel like their to-do list is overwhelming and there's just not enough time to get everything done. So she's created an affirmation that she uses, like there's enough time and money for everything. And this is something that I use often. So during the day, if that feeling comes up where you're like, oh my gosh, my to-do list, I have all these things that I have to go, you can just sit for a minute, take some deep breaths, just tell yourself there's enough time, money, energy, what it is, to get everything done in the day. Because what we want to do is we want to take our bodies, our actual body, back to that self-awareness. We want to get out of that sympathetic nervous system, which people know as the fight or flight response, which everybody is in today because they're on the treadmill of life, like running. So we want to get back to the rest and digest, that parasympathetic nervous system. So by telling yourself that affirmation throughout the day, taking some deep breaths, you can actually reset yourself midday, so then you can continue your day without that feeling of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and you can operate at such a higher level.
Right. Cool. Now, with that process, because I do that in my own life or whatever, with the affirmations and stuff, it's a very powerful process in my own personal life. But is it really just kind of retraining or kind of trying to reprogram like our thought process and getting rid of some of those conditioned thoughts or beliefs that we've had since birth?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
cool.
I like to call it reframing.
Reframing.
Is what I like to call that. So if you think about it, so you can think now, or for your listeners, like, how old are you? You have that many years of training in a certain way.
Right.
And it actually creates like neural pathways in your brain. And so there's like science to it and there's emotion to it. And so if you can take steps to change that each and every day, and it doesn't happen overnight, but you can do it slowly. So like with the one client I was talking about, she's really working on like not feeling stress and anxiety, and then once she kind of gets that down and figures out how she can reframe her thoughts around that, maybe there's another area of her life that's kind of tugging at her. She's like, okay, I need to address this now. So she kind of reframes her thoughts around that. I like to take a holistic approach to it, so you can really just focus on feeling good every day is what it's all about.
Good stuff. All right. So Carmen, the last question that I have for you as a part of the warm-up is, and again, just like some of the other questions, if there's more than one, please feel free to share. Do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast?
I love podcasts and I love reading. So let's see. Some newer podcasts that I've really been into lately are Powerhouse Women with Lindsay Swartz.
Okay.
It's like a tongue twister there.
Yeah.
Some great info there. She also has an event that she holds, which is awesome too for your female listeners. The Diet Dropout with Felicia Romero. Let's see, for your male listeners, tune into Chris Harder's For the Love of Money.
Okay.
I love that one. So there's so many, but
cool.
Those are just a few.
Do you ever listen to Ed Milet?
I do, yeah.
Okay, because one of your phrases that you said earlier is something that he says often. So I didn't know if maybe you listen to him.
It's not on rotation all the time.
Yeah.
But some of the time.
Yeah. Cool.
Curious to know after what that phrase was.
It's the one that life doesn't happen to you but for you.
Okay.
Like, if you listen to him, like if you follow along his stories or listen to his podcast, YouTube, he says that phrase tons of times. So when you said that, I was like, well, maybe she listens to Ed Milet. I don't know, but so cool. All right, so we're gonna dive into a little bit of your backstory because that's super important for me and the listeners just to be able to understand who you are today, to get a little bit of an understanding and a glimpse into who you were when you were younger. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit, Carmen, with myself and the listeners, kind of where did you grow up? What did the earlier years look like? And we'll just kind of progress, kind of like, elementary age and then high school, college, and then we'll just continue to kind of move forward to where you're at this point, okay?
Sounds good.
Cool.
So
all right.
I grew up in Oregon,
okay.
So a town called Albany, small town about an hour south of Portland. Let's see, my parents were divorced, so I kind of did like a back and forth thing. My brother's about 10 months older than me. My sister's 8 years younger than me. So I've always been like a mother figure to her.
Yeah.
So growing up, I excelled in school. I played sports, tried out everything, whether that be basketball, volleyball, softball. Loved all the sports. Got into high school. Kind of got into partying a little bit in high school. I remember I was playing volleyball one year as like a club team in the summer, and the coach just didn't like me because I wasn't like one of the so-called like preppy, people. So I got kicked off the team for missing a tournament, and one of the other girls did too. And I just remember this so vividly. Like I just like walked out. I was like, okay, well, I didn't fit a certain mold, but
right.
Also thinking back, I wasn't making the right choices or decisions, but wouldn't it have been better to like talk about those choices and decisions I was making from like the coaching standpoint? So anyway, so I finally pulled my head out of my ass probably about like my junior, senior year. I still partied a little bit, but I prioritized like school needed to come first and work. And so I was that girl that would like weight train. Well, what I called weight training, whereas like circuit training, back then with what I knew before high school and, 4.0 student. And when I graduated, I was just the kind of girl, like I wanted to do everything. So my parents instilled in me like hard work. I kind of learned a little bit about perfectionism.
Okay.
And, in order to be successful, you have to go down this career path of college and work and, just the society norm.
For sure.
So I had been working for a bank when I was in high school. So I continued that career. So I spent 16 years with JP Morgan.
Okay.
I loved that. I put myself through school night and weekends because my husband and I, we had a young family. So our kids will be 23 and 18 this year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, super amazing family. So I needed to take night classes nonetheless because I needed to work full time. I always wanted to be a nutritionist. I thought I wanted to be a registered dietitian, but the night classes didn't work out. So I went for a business degree with a health minor.
Okay.
Worked 16 years in the corporate world, and one day found myself, I was sitting in my car. So like I said, I lived in Albany, and I ran the number 2 revenue producing branch in the state of Oregon, which was up in the Portland area.
Right.
And I would commute there. So I would leave early to miss traffic. So I'd always be about an hour early. And I was sitting in my car and I just like started bawling, like crying.
Right.
And I was the steady girl. Like I was the one like everyone could rely on. You know, everything was always fine. So like this crying, I was like, what is this? Where is this coming from? So of course I pulled myself together for my team, for my clients. I went home that night and I told my husband like, hey, something's wrong. He's like, well, what's wrong? Like, I don't fucking know, you know, because I operated for so long in sourcing all of my self-worth from achievement. And I would achieve, like what's the next goal, never celebrating my successes. You know, I wore that black suit every day and I was powerful. I operated in my masculine energy all the time, just like go. And I would get home and I would take off the black suit, and then there was Carmen. The person that was left was totally not congruent with who I was every day, right? So when I was working there, I remember one time one of my employees that I became friends with, and she was great, and I mentored her. She told me, you know, I want to tell you, before I started here, I was very hesitant because everybody was telling me not to work for you. And she goes, do you know they call you Cruella de Vil? Do you know, like, people were really hesitant to want to work for you? But now that I do, like, I'm so excited that I did, because I held people to high expectations, because I had high expectations.
For sure,
And so I was always pushing, doing more, work more, not taking breaks, that sort of thing. So that crying moment was really that breakdown, that burnout point. And that's not the person I was. Like, I was kind. I wanted people to succeed in their career. I wanted my clients to be financially fit, you know, like, and that was not who I was. And to hear that people saw me through the eyes of like some like Cruella de Vil like type person, not having that congruency in my life meant that there needed to be a change.
Right.
But I didn't know what that change was going to be, you know? So
keep going. You're
I just
good,
knew that it was going to be around health and fitness. Because throughout this whole time, like, I was always into like working out, you know, eating as healthy as I could based on the knowledge that I had. And I really did want to be an RD. What I know now is I'm really happy, and that was a blessing. Like what we talked about, you know, life happens for you, not to you. I didn't become an RD because that is not the knowledge that I wanted. I didn't want to learn what the government was telling me and the USDA and all of that stuff. Like, I wanted to learn the real science and the holistic nutrition approach. So I left the bank, and I got a part-time job at I walked into in a town about 20 miles away from me. It's a small town like gym. They have about 5 locations, and I didn't know anybody from anybody. They didn't know me, so I walked in there and I asked for whoever was in charge of the nutrition program, and I introduced myself and told them I was going to run their nutrition program. And he looked at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? At this point, I was still working on my certification to become a nutritionist. So I think just because it was so ballsy, he actually gave me an interview. And so I interviewed, worst interview ever. They were very demeaning. Somehow I pulled out the job. And so I became the nutritionist at one of the clubs. And I loved it. Like, this was my trial to see, like, is this what I was going to do? And so I loved it because I was so good at connecting with people. Helping people make change, inspiring them, like, giving them that feeling, like, that I have every day, just of feeling good. And, but what I didn't like is I was offering the same nutrition program to everybody. That's not how shit rolls. Like, everybody shouldn't be doing the same thing. So I left there, and by that time I was building my own business. I still worked part-time for a few years for some nonprofits. Again, same type of idea. Because I had all this experience, no one would hire me for this like part-time job. So I'd have to walk into places and tell them who I was and why I was wanted the job, and so I'd get that. Then it's been 2 years now that I haven't had any part-time job, that I've just been operating my own business, really focusing on what I'm doing today.
Cool. Now I want to take a couple steps back and just unpack a little bit of what you shared, a few things that you said. The first thing I want to touch on is kind of like that perfectionism, which you kind of mentioned that at a pretty young age, you kind of got a taste of that, or that was instilled in you. Was that perfectionism something that caused like some angst or anxiety or some sort of like pressure within you? And did that cause like, because for me, I call myself like a recovering perfectionist, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of positive things that can come from it, but then if you really don't know how to deal with it and you don't really know what it is, it can cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of negative things too. So did you experience any of those negatives from kind of like that perfectionism, or not per se?
Oh, 100%. So the pressure to prove was always there and super strong. And if I'm not slowing down and being self-aware every day, I like how you said recovering perfectionism. I'd like to say I'm a recovering workaholic.
Yeah.
Because everything that I would do, I would only do it if I knew that I was going to be good at it.
Right.
And then I would do it like all out, like give everything to that. So when I think back on that perfectionism, you know, your parents growing up, like they're doing the best that that they can.
Yeah.
And so like what my mom taught me was like, you have to be a certain way. You know, when I was younger, I was a really shy kid and she put me in beauty pageants. Worst thing ever. Like I'm so shy.
Right.
But she wanted me to be this certain way, you know, hold myself a particular way, never show emotion on the outside. Right. And so it really instilled, which on one thing, being a hard worker is great.
Absolutely.
But I just took it way to the other side. And I saw really quickly that I could get accolades, or I could, you know, my parents would say, great job, if I got good grades, or if I had a really good basketball game. So I was like, I want more of that.
Absolutely.
Instead of like, I'm amazing, just like how I am, you know?
For sure.
And so I just always carried that with me. So I wouldn't put myself into situations that would be like super uncomfortable like I do now for fear of failure. I would always be like, if I needed to like talk in front of a group or something, I would practice and write it all out and everything, you know? So it just built, inside of me, like every day was always like what I talked about, like what is that next thing that I have to be doing? And I was never available in the moment. Like I could never let myself like relax. There's always something more that I needed to do. And even if it was like we were on vacation, or maybe we're doing something fun like having a barbecue at our house, I'm gonna make it perfect, the best food, all the stuff. You know, no one gives a shit about that. No one's gonna look to see if your baseboards are fucking clean. You know, like why am I stressing about this? You know, so it took a long time to figure that out and really dive in. And something that really helped me with that was just the self-awareness piece. Absolutely. The journaling, like what's coming up for me, like why am I feeling this way, and really checking in with myself. But it can creep in though. So it can creep in. There was a time, like a couple of months ago, that I cried because my printer jammed. And so you're probably thinking like, what the heck? Well, I wasn't crying because the printer jammed. So at that moment, I recognized in my body, like something is wrong, because you don't normally cry when the printer jams, right?
For sure, yeah.
So I looked at what I was doing. I was just packing so much into my schedule. I'm transitioning my business and growing in different ways this year, and I was packing too much in. So I needed to build in more time to slow down and be self-aware. So if you're self-aware enough to recognize those things, and it's like, okay, I was going back into my like sourcing my self-worth from achievement, you know, like focusing on outcomes and perfectionism. So since then, you know, I've kind of reorganized things and back to what makes me feel good on a daily basis, but it can definitely creep in, and it's hard.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And so kind of branching off from that, does because you are very like driven and very like kind of type A, and you've for a lot of years been conditioned to, you know, work hard, and you get that, you know, sense of satisfaction, you get those accolades through the achievement and all of that. So now that you're trying to kind of take a step back and trying to retrain or reprogram or reframe and kind of slow down and just be in the moment, does that then, with kind of your conditioned kind of way of thinking of the kind of the achievement and being type A, does the slowing down then kind of also cause some anxiety for you, in the sense of like, well, this is, I've got to be achieving, I got to be moving, I got to be going, but now you're trying to kind of step out of that and be in the moment. Can that, if you're not kind of like focused on your mindset and stuff, can that cause then some anxiety too, and be really hard, like to just be like, okay, I don't have to be doing something right now. I'm in the moment. Is that a struggle then too?
Yeah, at first it was definitely 100%. And I think all the women that I work with, like, that is 100%. Like, I always have to be doing something or being busy. However, what I have found, and other women have found, is like looking for the signs and signals. So when you slow down, you can actually see what's happening. You can see what's around you. And when you're checking in with yourself, you can actually experience emotion. So for a long time, like what I talked about, like, because I wasn't ever like upset, like I didn't let myself cry, it also limited me from experiencing joy. From experiencing any type of feeling. So now when I slow down, and it's basically almost like a little bit of proof to myself that slowing down works. I've gotten more opportunities as far as like connections, whether that being on like TV, fun podcasts that are like this, and connecting with people who I really want to connect to, because really like the universe has your back and everything that you want is like out there for you. But if you're not slowing down, you can't see it. And so I've had so much proof and just like amazing abundance. And I'm not just talking about money, but I'm talking about other things, relationships, that sort of thing, that are able to flow into my life because I'm slowing down, that I would never ever be able to see if I was still in that constant state of go, 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 go. And if people are like, no, that's not going to work, like you just have to try it and you have to trust and believe. Because instead of like focusing so hard on outcomes now, I focus on taking daily deliberate action, whether that be towards my dreams, towards building intentional relationships, all of that. And if I know and I feel good about what I'm doing daily, then the outcomes will come even more than what my wildest dreams are.
Now, when you were sharing about kind of like when you were working in the corporate world and stuff, you used the terms masculine energy, like you were like you were kind of like tapping into that more so than something else. What is, I mean, we know what masculine and feminine is, but when you said masculine energy kind of in that season of your life, what were you referring to?
That's a really good question. So masculine and feminine energy. So women are also taught to operate in their masculine energy, do more, hustle hard, but our feminine energy is more caring and nurturing, that sort of thing. So a really good, like, simple example is if you're a woman, you'll know if you're operating in your masculine energy if you think that you can do it all. Someone asks oh, can I help you with that? And you're carrying like 40 bags and you're like, no, dude, I got this shit. Right? Like, can I open the door for you? No, don't open the door for me. And the thing with that is not only do we do that in the workplace, but then we bring that home too. And if you're in a relationship and of the opposite sex, for example, with my husband, like I would just be doing so much. And that actually like takes away from his masculine energy, right? So he wants to help me, but because I always was doing so much, so often doing it all, then he didn't know how, And it wasn't until we started like really slowing down and like, hey, I want to feel like beautiful and sexy. Like, I just don't want to be like powerful all the time, So kind of just like switching gears a little bit and really like tapping back into more of that caring, nurturing, awesome, gorgeous brilliance that we have as women that men don't have. And like, just like being able to show up and shine and like stand into that. Asking for help, setting boundaries, that sort of thing. It's so important instead of always like hustle hard, do more, achieve more. Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I've had amazing guests on my podcast, and a lot of the females, if not all of them, are, most of them are type A entrepreneurs, business people, business women and stuff like that. And that's something that I've talked with several of my female guests after we turned off the mic and stuff, is about kind of this swing that I see in our culture where it's like, the pendulum, I feel like, has swung so far in one direction, where it's like kind of that the women's like empowerment and we can do everything that guys can. And it's just like, now it feels like our society is trying to force us guys kind of like into this certain mold. And like, I personally don't fit in that mold, and I'm not going to go into that mold. But I just feel like, the pendulum always in our culture is swinging either too far to one side or the other. And I just feel like right now, like it's, with the kind of the Me Too movement, all these different things, like there's so much like, I think
like you hit the nail on the head with this like masculine energy thing, and it's great kind of hearing a female saying we need to step out of that and not be in that all the time and really step into who we are as women. And again, like you said, like if you're in a relationship with the opposite sex, let them be who they are and we need to be who we are. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and that's not to say that women can't have goals and be driven.
Exactly.
But the thing is when I am in my feminine energy, but I'm still goal setting and doing all of that, like I can do so much more. I can create so much more. I can connect more with people that I'm meant to connect with instead of being like I have to be this certain way. So my example from the bank, like I wore that power suit every day. I wore a black suit, and when you get up in banking into higher leadership, it's mainly men.
Yeah.
So I thought I had to be this certain way. And so I operated like I knew everything. I'm powerful. I can do everything. I can work all these hours. I can do all these things, right? Because that's what I thought I needed to be. But then when I would go home, I would take that suit off and I would just feel like shit.
Right.
You know, like small things like my relationship with my husband, like maybe our sex life wasn't that great just because like, well, I'm always so powerful, like I'm not being like sexy, you know? Or just relationships with family and friends. What am I teaching my daughter? Like, am I teaching her that she can't like have feelings?
Right.
That's so important. And
Absolutely.
even for guys too, having feelings, being able to share openly. And so there's just this innate thing that all women have that we are taught to like dole down.
Yeah.
And I think that we should like bring it out more. And if we bring it out more, we'll be able to do more of what we're meant to really do.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I agree 100%. And it's just, like I said, it's great to hear a lady kind of talking about that, because I hear a lot of ladies talking other stuff, and it's just like, you know, you kind of got to go with the flow sometimes in life, depending upon the situation you're in and stuff. But like in regards to like when you were like working your way up kind of in the bank system, that corporate world or whatever, like where you're at today, don't you think though, Carmen, like you kind of have to step into a different persona or personality at some points in life to kind of get what you want, or to like move up certain ladders, or not? Like, do you think you would be able, like in the mind frame that you're in today and kind of the things that you've learned and where you're at just at this moment, do you think you could have advanced the way that you did in that setting where you're at today, or not?
In the bank setting, is that what you mean? Yeah, I think I could have, because where I'm at today is I'm really fucking confident in who I am. Yeah. So, and I know that I can do anything that I want to do. But the difference now is I can do anything, but I just can't do everything. And so before I thought I could do everything. But I was really not confident in the ability of doing anything. And so there's a big difference there, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so, so today I'm so much more confident, and I know what my strengths are, and so I can play on those.
Beautiful, yeah.
And I would be super successful. And the other thing, just like going back to what we talked about, that book, and coming from a place of love, how I communicate would be so much different. It wouldn't be as direct. Maybe people wouldn't call me Cruella de Vil anymore. Right? And I would... Not that people didn't learn from me, not that I still don't have people that I mentor now that were from the bank, but it would just be different, and the whole feeling would be different, and we would attract different clients, you know, to our bank, to our branch. I would attract different employees, just because the energy that I'm bringing is totally different.
It would be a different environment, but the same results, if not better results, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right, so let's kind of keep moving on here. So we kind of got a full glimpse of kind of your story. Let's kind of just kind of camp out now on who you are today, kind of what you're learning today, what you're doing in regards to your clients and stuff like that. So first of all, just for some of the listeners, Carmen, out there that might not understand kind of what holistic is, what does it mean when we say like a holistic nutritionist? Because there's holistic doctors, there's a lot of things that are kind of described as holistic. So what is a holistic nutritionist? What does holistic mean?
So when you think of nutrition, you think of just food.
Right.
So, and that's how I started out. When I first started out, I kind of just modeled what other people were doing. I was going to be a nutritionist and I was going to be a trainer. Like, that's how things were going. I bought the NASM book, I did the studying. Then I realized really quickly that the part that was missing was the mindset component. So I found with my nutrition clients, I was coaching them a ton on their mindset, like how to make behavior changes and things like that. And they didn't need help with working out. Like, a lot of people can get that workout part down, but we need to figure out like why we're binge eating, why we're overeating. And so then I went back to school, got another certification in holistic nutrition, which means now I look at the entire person. So I look at their daily life, we look at their sleep, we look at their rest and recovery, we look at their stress levels, and we look at their food and nutrition. You know, we talk about like, you know, digestion. We talk about any medications they're having. We look at everything that's impacting their life, especially if someone's trying to make a physique goal, which oftentimes is fat loss. Then we want to look at all aspects. Because yeah, you can work out and eat right, but if you're not getting proper sleep, or if you're not reducing stress, or if your mindset is that of being super critical on yourself, like, you're not going to be able to hit that goal as easily. So holistic is really just like looking at the entire person.
For sure.
Even down to like what we talked about, like their to-do list. How full is your day? Like, do you have space in there to even fucking think? Right.
Okay, so I want to just take what you just said there, like, do you have time to think and talk about that a little bit? Because for me, kind of the quietness and the stillness has been a big part of like my, like, I'll call it an awakening, or kind of just maybe more of an internal transformation. But how important is it for us to take a step back in our lives and to really be quiet, to be alone with our own thoughts, and just to be able to think and kind of figure out like who we are, why are we here? What are we all about? What do we want out of life? Is that super, super important or not really?
100% important.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone asked me today, what can I do to start making a change in my life, whether that be health, career, relationships, anything, it's just stop consuming. So often we have so much information coming at us all the time. Like, I want to lose weight. Oh, today I'm going to do keto, and then I'm going to do green juice, and then I'm going to get celery juice, and then, oh, maybe I need to do intermittent fasting. It's like, just stop. Like, stop all of that. And first you need to check in with yourself. So what I like to do is I just like to ask questions like, what do I stand for today? As a human today, like, what do I stand for? And oftentimes I ask people that, and it's like, nothing. Dead air. Like, I don't know. 100%. Because we're not taking enough time to slow down. So what I have people start with is like, what do I not want in my life? What do I not stand for? Right? Like, focus on that, and then it gets really fucking clear on what you do stand for, and you can kind of start drilling that down. And the more that you sit with yourself, and believe me, when I first started this, I couldn't sit still. Like, I was always like filling every minute with doing something. And like, just being still is so important. And the kind of getting a little heady here, the messages that you receive, whether that's like after like you get the best idea, or just the feeling in your body of being relaxed and not having that constant, like in your chest area, like that feeling of like tension, just like anxiety and overwhelm. Just being still with yourself is important. And people are like, well, I don't have all this time. Take 5 minutes. Just take 5 minutes. And if nothing comes up for you while you're just sitting there, just ask yourself, like, how am I feeling right now? And then like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Like, what was happening around me before I started feeling this way? Like, why am I feeling this way? You know, and just checking in. There's no right or wrong way. When I started doing meditation, I always thought, like, I'm bad at meditation. That's not even a fucking thing. Like, meditation is just about, like, calming your mind, being still. You know, everybody's good at meditation. It's just about taking the time to do it.
For sure. Okay, so I think this might have been one of your daily affirmations that you posted on your Instagram, and I there's a couple that I have written down here, but I think this really ties in well with what we were just talking about, and I just want you to maybe explain it a little bit more. But it was, you'll never be able to find yourself if you're lost in someone else. What does that mean?
Ooh, that's one of my favorite ones. So oftentimes we look to others to see what they're doing. And mentorship is a wonderful, great thing. But sometimes what can happen is we start emulating or copying or wanting to be like someone else, something else. And so if we're constantly just doing what society tells us, what we think someone else needs to do, for example, like when I was like, okay, well, I know how to do this nutrition thing. I'm going to be a nutritionist and a trainer. And I could have went down that path and I could still be there. But I realized like, no, this is not where I'm supposed to be, and checking in with yourself and figuring out, who am I? What do I stand for? What's important to me? How am I meant to serve? And figuring it out for you, then you're just never going to be there, because you're always going to be in setting certain expectations for yourself, in constant judgment and comparison of other people and what they're doing, instead of just like, stay in your lane, you know?
Right.
Stay in your lane, do what lights you up, what you're meant to do, how you're meant to serve, and like the most beautiful, magical things happen when you do that. But if we're constantly just doing what we think is expected, or doing something because someone else is doing it, like it's not going to work.
Right. And that ties right into what you were just talking about a few minutes ago about the quietness, the stillness, the meditation, because if you don't know who you are, then what I like to say is you get sucked in to somebody else or a group of people, and you kind of get sucked into the current of life, right? So you have to know who you are. And once you do that, you're a lot less likely to get sucked in or to kind of get taken with the current, because you're like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And just moving in that direction. So super cool. All right, now let's talk for a little bit about just being an empowerment coach. So I think probably most people that are going to be listening to this understand like what it means to be empowered. But in regards to being an empowerment coach, what does that specifically entail? What does that specifically mean?
So that's where I like to say I'm your fuck your to-do list coach.
Okay.
It's all about figuring out who you are, getting back to who you are, and going from there.
Right.
So like I shared before, most of the time my clients are women, and they're business leaders, business owners, super ambitious women, and they are stuck in a game of expectations, of comparison, of judgment. And so we kind of peel back the layers a little bit and figure out, who am I? What do I really want? Am I doing what I want to do? And I help people make changes in their life based on what they find. And again, it's a little bit different for everybody. So we always still talk about building healthy habits, because if you're not healthy and you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to do anything that you want to do in life. But it's all about empowering you to build the confidence and authentically every single day show up and shine just who you are, and knowing that you are enough today just as you are. It's okay to want to grow and like make changes and learn, but today as a human that you are, like, you are freaking amazing.
Right.
And so figuring that out, and then like, what can I do from there? But for everybody, there's different layers. Like I said, however old you are, you have all these layers that you've built in, and whether you realize it or not, like you're carrying old shitty stories and applying it to today. Something happens, you may not realize it, but subconsciously you have an emotional response or a feeling or a thought because of something that happened in your past, and you replay that over and over and over again.
So when you were kind of like at that point when you were like working at the bank and everything, and you kind of had that moment kind of where you broke down and you're just like, you know, something's going on here, kind of what was the process for you then in regards to kind of like, okay, like the health, and you kind of knew you want to be maybe like an RD or a registered dietitian or something, but like what was it that you were just like, okay, this is who I am and this is what I want out of my life, when you were kind of like at that point of kind of breaking? How did you work through that for yourself personally?
So I'm still doing it today,
For
and
sure.
I think that life, like that's one of the most amazing parts of our lives, is that we can continue to grow and learn. So it wasn't overnight. I knew I wanted to do something with nutrition, so I went into that. The thing that I recommend for everybody right now, something that I didn't necessarily have, is finding and building a tribe of people around you that are kind of where you want to go, that can uplift you. Because oftentimes one of the biggest things that hold us back is the people around us. Not that they don't love us or support us, but sometimes they're not going to be as empowering for us.
Right.
Or they don't have those ideas and those thoughts and the ability to challenge you the way that you need to be challenged in order to take yourself from A to Z, right? And so building people around you that can support you and uplift you is so important. I didn't necessarily have that. My journey's taken quite some time, so I started just with like books. I've always been into reading, so personal growth books, personal development books, so I started there. And I just started taking what I learned, and the difference between most people and what I did is I actually would read the book and then I would do the shit the book said. Right? Instead of just like putting it back on the shelf, I would actually implement things. And I'd realize like, oh, this makes me feel better, or this brings more of what I want into my life. And then I started going to events, conferences, things that where I would be around those people that I wanted to be around, and it would always be my goal at each one that I want to build one quality relationship, not just someone to say hi to on social media, someone that I actually connect with at a deeper level. We're not fucking talking about the weather every day. We are actually talking about things that matter.
Right.
We can support and challenge each other. And then from there I did mentorship or coaching programs, one-on-one coaching around business coaching, around personal growth, around spiritual coaching, and then just kind of continue to where I'm at today.
Right.
So all the things that I've learned, and it was challenging, I think one of the biggest things was people laughing at me when they're like, they don't understand what I'm doing. So my circle had been the same for so long, and they didn't know or understand, and I didn't feel support. And so, especially if there's any other entrepreneurs out there, sometimes we can feel like we're playing out this game alone, and it gets really hard.
Right.
And so, over time, like building people around me, this year I joined a business mastermind, which has been really awesome. So that's kind of like my journey, like books to events to one-on-one coaching to now like masterminding. But it's a constant growth.
For
constant.
sure.
Yeah.
And the biggest takeaway for me personally, just listening to you, Carmen, is you took action. Like you said about specifically about the books. You read the book, and then you had some takeaways, and you took action. You know what I mean? So many times I see people like they might be reading, or they might be listening to podcasts. They might be taking all this information in, but they're not changing, they're not going through an awakening, that they're not transforming, they're not evolving because they're not taking action. And it's okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but my philosophy, my belief is like, you don't have to have all your ducks in a row to take action, right? Like just move in. My big thing is like take one step in the right direction, every day, one day at a time. And if you don't know what the right direction is, like that's why it's important to know who you are, to spend time alone in your thoughts and things like that, but just be moving forward. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. So one of my first, the women that I look to as like a mentor is Lori Harder.
Okay.
And that my number one takeaway from her from way back when is like, start before you're ready. Take messy action. Just like take action. Because when you take action, like anxiety goes away. You do it, it may not be perfect, you might mess it up, but the thing is you're like, okay, I can do this. And taking that messy action and starting before you're ready, where everything's not perfect, like that builds confidence. And you just keep building it and building it and building it and building it. And taking action is so important. Like if you go to an event and then you're so inspired, this is what I used to do. I'm so inspired, I just heard from somebody, a speaker or something, I'm so inspired, and then I go home, the book or the notes go in the drawer, and then I don't take any action.
Right.
One of the conferences that I love, that your audience might love, is called Fitposium.
Okay.
So it is in Phoenix, Arizona. It's going to be happening in October. Little shout out to them, tickets are still available. But anybody in the health space, like it talks all about these things of growing your business and taking action and all of that. But what I got from that conference the most is like I would go back every year because I learned something different. People are like, well, isn't it the same? No, it's different. And you're different as a person. And each and every year I take more messy action and create more change in my life to be able to serve others even more.
Right. Cool. All right. So there's this thing in our culture that kind of annoys me, and I want to get your thoughts because you're a straight shooter. Like everybody's like, okay, love yourself, like be cool with who you are and all this type of stuff. And like, I get like the message they're trying to portray, or, I get that. And I think a lot of listeners kind of probably understand all that. But like, if you're just like, always like, oh, I love myself and I'm cool with where I am and all this stuff, it's like, like we were just talking about, there's not going to ever be any progression. So is it okay, can you like love yourself but not like, let's say, the way you look, or not like maybe some of your mannerisms or some of the things that you're doing and want to change? Mm-hmm. Can that happen? Can you be confident in yourself, love yourself, love everything about you, and yet not like maybe some things that you're doing, or maybe not like the direction you're going with your life, or not like the weight that you see on the scale, or your body image?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're digging into some good stuff here. I love this question. So here's the thing about us as individuals, as humans, is we are all unique, and like our soul, like we can like totally love ourselves and who we are as a person. But I think like the hardest part in life is when you get like into that complacency and that mediocre. I know I was there for a while, and my husband was there for a while. Our family was there for a while. We were doing like the standard American thing. Mm-hmm. We both worked. We had 2 kids. We owned a house. We paid off all our debt. Like we did all the things, but it was just like mediocre. There wasn't anything exceptional. And like I talked about before, like not really experiencing like sadness or joy or anything. And so I wasn't confident in myself. So yes, to answer your question, knowing that we're all like unique and special and we all have something to bring to this world is so important. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, growth is just feels so good. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't ripped off a Band-Aid in a long time, so if you haven't taken off your security blanket, if there's something that you're curious about, anything, it could be anything, trying a new workout class, speaking up at work in a meeting instead of saying like, oh, someone else is going to talk for me, right? Like actually doing the thing that you really, really want to do, but you've kind of been scared to do, is like doing that thing. Once you do it, you get this feeling that is like the feeling of feeling good every day. Yeah. And then you want more and more and more of that feeling. The other thing that happens is, so if you're like, I don't know if I can do that, and you're maybe like a caring person, a nurturing person, well, if you do that, you're going to inspire somebody else to do that. Mm-hmm. So start there. Start there by knowing, if I start eating healthy, if I start working out, if I start making changes in my relationship, if I start maybe going towards a new career goal, if I start doing that and I show up authentically and really shine based on who I am as a person, as an individual, because I do love who I am, but I'm going to make this growth changes, then you're going to be able to like just illuminate the world, like inspire other people. The last thing I want to say, that since this is a fitness podcast, something that's important to me is around taking care of yourself. And taking care of yourself isn't just how you eat and how you work out. And so there's a whole movement right now called the Body Love movement. Yeah. And I love it because like every shape and size, everybody looks different. And this, especially like the magazines, social media, just like there's this image of, whether it be men or female, like the perfect body, right? And I don't necessarily agree with that. But I also don't agree with when you're saying like, oh, body love, and I'm morbidly obese. Right. But body love. Like, well, maybe right now you're 21 and that's great, but guess what's going to happen in 4 years? You're going to have high blood pressure, you're going to probably die of heart disease, you're going to get type 2 diabetes, you're not going to be able to walk upstairs without being out of breath, you're not going to be able to maybe like you're a lady, maybe not have children, you won't be able to do the things that you want to do because you're not taking care of yourself. Yeah. And it comes back to just building in simple things, nourishing your body, practicing daily movement, slowing the fuck down every day, protecting your energy. And so if you are in that space where you're like, oh, I love myself, but I want to make a change, like, it's fine. Mm-hmm. Let's say like someone looks at you and you're like, oh, you're super healthy. And you're like, I want to lose 5 pounds. That's fine too. I want to build muscle. Like, that's fine. Do you? And I think so much like we're criticized if we're too skinny, if we're too fat, if we're whatever, or if we want to make a change and someone appears to look at us like we're like perfect or like we will look good. Right. Yeah. And so that was kind of a long-winded answer to your question of like always seeking growth is so important.
Yeah.
Because that's what really lights you up. And focusing on your health first, though, like you're not going to be able to do it if you don't focus on your health.
Cool. All right. I appreciate you digging a little bit on that one, because that's just something that I see that I have a lot to say about it, and I just want to kind of get your perspective. You know what I mean? So
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no,
listening.
for sure. It's good. Now, we're gonna kind of start moving towards the end here. We've been going for almost an hour already. There's a couple more things I want to kind of touch on though. What is and I know again, like we're all different. We all have different struggles and stuff. But you know, if when you work with enough people, there's kind of similarities that come up. So in regards to like struggles for females, like what's maybe one or two struggles that you see a lot of ladies maybe that you work with or you just kind of see out there in the world as you're living your life? What are some of those struggles that you see with females, just generally speaking, that just like you're like, man, like this topic or this struggle or this issue continues to come up again and again? What are a couple that you see out there?
So the number one reason women come to me is they want to lose weight.
Okay.
So they'll come to me and they want to lose weight. And so we always hop on a call. And again, the holistic approach. I want to know about you. I want to see how I can best serve you. So what I uncover is most of the time they're not able to put themselves first. So they're not able to build sustainable health habits. That's why they've been yo-yo dieting and not losing any of the weight. They have a really strong pressure to prove and to be the one that can do absolutely everything. And so to give just a little shorter answer here, so basically they come thinking they want to lose weight, which they probably do, and we do that, but we also dig into those other aspects of their life. Why have you not been successful with this before? Well, you're not putting yourself first, you're not creating space in your life, you're trying to live up to expectations of others, there's too much comparison and judgment. How can we get you out of that? How can we say, fuck your to-do list, get your list of things that are important to you,
right,
so you can actually lose the weight that you want to lose.
Okay.
That's kind of the gist of it.
Right. So, what's been one of your biggest struggles in your life?
In my life? So I think one of my biggest struggles, going back to like what I talked about everybody having, is just confidence. So because I was sourcing my self-worth from achievement, I never actually realized like how freaking amazing I am.
Right.
Or like what makes me unique. And so I never really wanted to like check in with that. Like I didn't know what my feelings were. So I think one of my biggest struggles is like being confident. And so finding that confidence really meant like I had to figure out who I was and I had to be able to process feelings. And now I'm like, oh, give me all the feelings, where before I would push them down.
Yeah.
And I mean, that still pops up sometimes, like you see on the social media feed and you're like, oh, look at that person. Now it's not like body confidence anymore. It's like business, like that kind of thing. Like, like they've been doing this for 20 years. This is what I'm doing for 6 years. Like, so I think confidence, and it's going back to using the tools and resources that you've learned, reframing your thoughts, getting back into that high vibe state, so you can just like operate on a daily basis again.
Okay. What is health to you, Carmen?
Focus on feeling good every day. I know I've said that 5,000
times. That's cool.
But focus on feeling good every day, and that means something different to everybody. For me, it means, so the 4 things that I love to talk about, because this is what I operate every day, is protect your energy, nourish your body, practice daily movement, and slow the fuck down. That's important to me every day, to focus on feeling good. If I do those things, then health comes.
Now, like in regards to feelings, because like feeling is like your feelings can be like a roller coaster, right? So like if you just concentrate like on your feelings or whatever, can that become like a trap, in the sense of like if you're just all caught up in your feelings and it's like you're driving to do a podcast interview and somebody cuts you off, like there's feelings and emotions that are gonna like rise up, and you see what I'm saying? So how do you like be in your feelings and tap into that and kind of like rest in that, but not be like a slave to your feelings?
Good question. So to clarify, when I say focus on feeling good, that means energetically, that means spiritually, that means physically, that means mentally, that means like just having this way about me that most people, when they start working with me, they're like, I don't know what it is, but I just have this feeling. So that's the thing that I'm talking about. Right. So yeah, let's go to your example. So just something that your listeners can do right away. You're in traffic and someone cuts you off. And you immediately get that inside of you, like that, so upset. Like you physically and mentally are upset. Right then, you can be like, no, okay, what am I doing here? So maybe you missed the light. Now you're sitting at the red light, and maybe you're going to be a little bit late. And so you're like, oh, I'm going to be late, and all these things start building up, right? I'm going to be late, and then Quentin's going to be mad at me, and he's not going to be like me, and all these things, right? And so immediately you just check yourself. And this goes back to thought reframing. Check yourself. No, this is not the space that I need to be in. And you try to pick the next highest thought. So maybe it's like, okay, well, since I'm at the red light, I guess I get a minute. I have been rushing. I can take a few deep breaths. And that's that thought. And then you kind of release that someone just cut you off and you're sitting at the light. And it's probably okay if I'm a couple minutes late. He's not going to hate me because I'm pretty amazing. And then you're like, you know what? Actually, I'm really excited for this podcast. So it's probably good that I've taken a few breaths. Do you see what I mean? So you like pick the next highest thought and reframe yourself back to that focus on feeling good. Because all the experiences and everything that's happening, for us, like I said, nothing can actually trigger an emotion until you place meaning on it. So if I place that meaning that guy is so stupid because he cut me off, like I could take that back. And if I didn't place that meaning on it, oh well, I'm on my way, I'm almost there, You get to place the meaning on things. And that often goes back to those old shitty stories that we're carrying on our back too. That we're placing meaning on things that we don't really realize.
Very good. All right. So you're a mom, and so what is, and you mentioned earlier that you were a mom at a pretty young age and stuff. So just like what is motherhood meant to you, and kind of how has that shaped you as a woman?
So, really good question. So, to be clear, I am a bonus mom. So, we have 2 kids. I did not physically have them, but their mom is not in the picture. I'm not sure why I have to explain that. I probably shouldn't have, but I get a lot of questions on that.
That's okay.
But being, it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Seeing 2 other small humans, grow up and be super successful, happy, joyful, with the ability to communicate, to cook food at home. Right. Got to throw that one in there.
That's good.
So our son just graduated from Northwestern with a biomedical engineering degree. He happened to get a full academic scholarship. I get chills every time I say it. Our daughter will graduate this next year from high school. She's kind of figuring out the space that she wants to be in. But I think to all the parents out there, knowing that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to do it all, asking for help and teaching your kids to be independent and not doing everything for them is really, really important. And just because the kid down the street has an iPhone doesn't mean your kid has to have one too. But learning and growing with them too. It has been fun. It's been fun to now go through this process of transition for myself, of personal growth and business growth, and for them to see that and to empower them to be like, it's okay. Maybe if my daughter doesn't want to go to college right away, that's okay. Absolutely. If she does, that's okay too. Just do something. Do something that's lighting you up. And don't do what you think is just expected of you. And it's just so fun to see. And so just children are just so amazing. Yesterday I locked myself out of my house. And so I was at the pool. I planned to go to the pool, which was kind of a blessing. I hadn't been able to yet. So I spent 4 hours at the pool yesterday. And one of the things I appreciated was just the children playing. They were just playing and they didn't care. They weren't worried about what other people thought. They were just having fun and experiencing joy. So children are really awesome.
Cool. I appreciate you sharing that. So I just want to ask you you said several times you said you're kind of going through a transition with with your business and stuff, correct? That's kind of what you said right now and this year. So what is kind of the dream that you have in your heart for yourself, your family, your business, just kind of for that future.
Yeah, I want to guide thousands of women to get back, like what we talked about, like get back their feminine energy, build their confidence, love themselves, stop being ran by what we think society expects of us, let go of the pressure to prove, step into their authentic light, set boundaries like they've never set before, build quality relationships, have this feeling like that can happen, that's possible. And most women don't think it's possible because they're children, because they're work, because they're whatever. But it is possible. And so the transition I'm going through with my business instead is just thinking bigger, being, doing bigger things, serving on a larger scale, so I can help more people have that feeling that I talked about each and every day, that they just don't know what it is, but they feel so good, and have the tools and resources to be able to be healthy, build the life of their dreams instead of the one that's expected of them.
Yeah. Before I ask the last question, Carmen, is there anything that you would like to share that maybe I haven't asked you about that's just burning inside of you, or maybe just some information you'd like to share with the listeners that we haven't touched on?
We've touched on a lot.
Yeah.
So I haven't really talked a lot about nutrition, and nutrition is really important to me. So I like to talk about eat like your life depends on it, because it does. If you're trying to make any change in your life, whether you're trying to improve a health ailment, if you're trying to build muscle, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to be more focused at work, if you're trying to help your kids' behavior, it all comes back to food. Food should happen first. And the one thing that you can do is cook at home. So if you would start cooking more meals at home with real food ingredients, which means not packaged food, you're going to see a huge shift in every area of your life, because it all starts with food.
Absolutely.
And nutrition is so important. So people can follow me too. I do live videos 5 days a week on nutrition and mindset and just living an amazing fucking life every day. So they can follow me on Instagram at Carmen Ohling, or Facebook, Carmen Ohling Eat Move Live. But yeah, that's it. Food's important.
Cool.
That's
Absolutely.
the last thing I want to share.
That's good. I like that. So the last question that I have for you then, Carmen, is what sets your soul on fire?
Being guided to serve in a big way that connects us all as humans and evens out the playing field. So what I mean, no longer do we put people on pedestals, or no longer do we think we're better than others, just recognizing that we are all one. And if we come together as this amazing human collective, we can do so much. And that feeling is just so amazing. I could probably cry.
Right. You can. You can cry on the podcast, not a problem. So, all right. So Carmen, that kind of wraps up the podcast conversation, and I just want to thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for kind of sharing your story and sharing your passion, sharing your heart with our listeners. You mentioned your Instagram. I think you also have a website, so any other places that people can find you, follow along, get a hold of you, please just share that right now if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'd love to share that, but first I just want to recognize you for the work that you're doing. You shared the vision of the podcast in your life, and the work that you're doing is so exceptional.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And important, and celebrate that.
Cool.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. So CarmenOhling.com. We talked a lot about journaling, and most people get stuck on journaling. I do have a free Hack Your AM Routine guide people can grab. So CarmenOhling.com/intention. And it's free. Just download it. You can kind of work through that, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, if you want some quality health, motivation, inspiration content, they can follow me, watch some videos.
Some confidence, right?
Yeah,
confidence.
build some confidence.
Good. All right. So listeners, I just want to thank you once again for tuning into the 127 Fit podcast, hanging out with Carmen and myself today. If you want to try to get a hold of me or follow along with what I've got going on in regards to the podcast and my guests, you can find me on Instagram at 127fitness. My personal account is at QVars. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. If you guys would do a huge favor for me and please leave a 5-star rating and review. That would be great. And if you have somebody like a friend or an acquaintance or yourself personally, if you think you or your friend or friends acquaintances would be a good guest or guest on the podcast, you can send me an email at 127fit@gmail.com. Just share a little bit about yourself, or give the email to your friend, your acquaintance, what have you, and then we'll just kind of go from there. If you're finding value, which I know you are in the guests that I'm bringing onto the podcast, and finding value in this podcast specifically, if you'd please share the episode or episodes on your Instagram and Facebook stories, that would be great. That's how we kind of just get a bigger audience to listen and more people be positively impacted. And when you share the episode or episodes that you're finding that value in, if you would use the hashtag #BeSomeoneToFollow, again, that would be greatly appreciated and that would be super cool. And per the usual, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, "If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small." This time, until next time, I will catch you guys later.